Welcome to Business Beyond Borders, the go-to podcast for CPA firms seeking transformative insights. I'm your host, Laurence Whittam, and with each episode we'll uncover key insights, best practices, and invaluable resources tailored for CPAs. From trending strategies to diving deep into outsourcing and offshoring, our experts will help in all areas of your business. Hey everyone, and welcome back to Business Beyond Borders. So I have a slightly different version of an episode today where it's a little bit weird, where I'm not with anybody else. I don't have a guest with me. But what I wanted to do is start creating a bit of a short series of quicker episodes for you with specific questions that I'm getting around outsourcing and offshoring, to make sure that everybody's informed, to make sure that if I'm dealing with it with one firm and they've asked these questions, typically another firm will have the same issues. And today is, because of the timing, we're looking at tax season. And again, we're sort of getting into the start of everything. So I've recently been having a lot of 7216 questions, a lot of things relating to engagement letters, where firms have put it off and they've now got into the implementation stage, and they really want a bit more help as to how do I now roll this out. Okay, so we'll cover a few areas. So if you're confused around the 7216 disclosure requirements, or you were confused about how you can roll out your engagement letters, I'm more than happy to help from an individual perspective. But here are a few examples and a few of the questions that I'm getting. So first off, what do I need to do as a firm regarding 7216? I know I have disclosure requirements, but I don't know what that fully entails for my firm. So to answer that, 7216 is a requirement for a firm to get signed, especially when they're doing tax work offshore or with contractors within the US, right? So it's really anybody outside of your firm. If you are having somebody come in and you are disclosing that information when it comes to individual tax returns or even non-individual tax returns, so business, partnerships, you should be having a disclosure letter signed by your client. Now, the specific forms that is required, like they give very specific defined language, and I say they meaning the IRS, as to what you have to put in that disclosure and how you have to put it in your engagement letter to a client to sign. It can't be jumbled up. It can't be scattered around throughout your engagement letter. It needs to be in a specific format. It needs to be in a specific font. It needs to be a specific size of font, right? So this is where and it's quite specific, right, from that perspective. And it's for individuals, it's about a page of disclosure that is there. So if you are thinking about offshoring, if you're thinking about even using contractors onshore, you should be having this disclosure letter signed by your clients. Okay. Now, when it comes to business and partnership type returns, it's a paragraph. It's about a paragraph. It's a very specific paragraph, again, that you should have in there. But it's a paragraph that is very non-specific when it comes to tax returns. But again, it's a disclosure that really should be there. It should be in its own paragraph. It can be inside your engagement letter and have it signed by your clients. Okay. Now, when it comes to accounting, audit, there is no specific or separate disclosure that is needed when it comes to the 7216. However, I do highly recommend that firms should implement some type of disclosure. If you are having anybody outside of your firm, whether it's a contractor, whether it's an offshore entity, whether it's just offshore team members, even for accounting and audit, I would personally recommend putting some disclosure in. Right. And it could be that paragraph, right? But it at least it helps you sleep at night at the end of the day. It helps a lot of the firm partners, team members. It helps them, again, they're comfortable with what's going on in a lot of senses as well. Okay. Now, the other side of it is, okay, so when we have our disclosure, let's say if a client doesn't want to sign the disclosure letter, right? Do we have to do anything else? Especially when it comes to tax returns, yes, you need to make sure you are separating your information or doing the best job possible to separate that information so that a client or so that an outsourced team member or a contractor that is not an employee of your firm does not have access to the clients that have not signed that disclosure letter. Generally, it is a lot easier in the practice management solution that you have and in the document storage system that you have in order to separate clients and separate the accessibility of those clients. When it comes to tax software, it becomes a lot more complex in the sense of if you haven't set up the user groups correctly, or if you haven't really segregated that data at the beginning, you may have years and years of archived client information now, which is quite difficult and timely in order to separate. Realistically, you still have to do it. So it's something where you now need to put a bit of planning and put a bit of effort behind your IT group to ensure that they can correspond with the tax software, right? I mean, Wolters Kluwer, CCH products, right? Or the Thomson Reuters products, right? Lots of these products do have options to create these user groups and allow you to go in and separate the data, right? Now, an alternative to that is password protecting, right? So if you can implement a password manager, or you can generally bulk password protect a lot of those client folders and files within the tax softwares as well. So if you are at a last minute type of situation where really you don't have time to go through all the data and transfer in batches over to a new system, right? And separating everything and creating these user groups, it can be easier to password protect, right? And your admin can generally password protect every single client file in there. And it may be a standard password, right? It may be one password for the firm that everybody has, but then you individually create new passwords for the client files that you would like the outsourcing team member to utilize. Okay. So that is another way that you can do it that is a little bit less tedious and less intensive, right, than necessarily separating all your files and everything and separating all your data. But it is mandatory from that perspective that you should separate that information and separate that data. It should not be accessible by everybody. Okay. Technically, you are not being compliant with 7216 if they can access that information. Okay. Now, the other question comes up is, how do I disclose this? I'm nervous. My partners are nervous about the questions we'll get, the success rate of rolling out this engagement letter, right? And really that comes down to you as a firm. That comes down to you being transparent with your partners and your managers, anybody that is interacting with the clients, and also knowing your clients. So what makes you feel comfortable? Do you want to send an email to everybody and let them know about your new initiative, right? That you're going to be using international teams. You've done, and if you do want to do it that way, just realize that if you make a bigger deal about it and you bring this up separately, more than likely people are going to have questions. People may feel stronger about it that they do not want that to happen. Okay. Now, in that case, you need to shape that messaging very well in the sense of these are maybe your new team members, right, that are coming on board if you're going about it that route. If this is just seasonal capacity type help, right, how did you vet your outsourcing firm? Mention that it is a common practice in the accounting and CPA space, right? How are they accessing the data? How is that data secure for your clients? Okay. You will have to educate your team as to, and have a plan and maybe FAQ set up so that partners feel comfortable answering those questions when they come up. you will still be pleasantly surprised with the type of response that you get, right, generally. So, but if you make a big deal about it, just be aware that you will probably have a big deal coming back, right? And you may have more people asking those questions, okay? Now, when it comes to best practice, I mean, I generally advise it's your engagement letter. Roll it out within your engagement letter on that separate page that's needed, okay? And field the questions as they come in, right? If they have a problem signing it, they'll come back to you and ask the question. Again, you still have to educate your team to make sure that they know they're all on board with what's gone on. They understand how to respond to it. And making sure that you have those types of FAQs and responses and you've built some confidence in your internal team is hugely important, so that now when the client calls, they don't say, oh, well, if you don't want to sign it, it's not going to happen, right? And we don't need to outsource it then, right? Because what's going to happen is then the sign rate will drastically decrease, okay? So again, just one of those aspects that you really need to focus more internally than necessarily worry about what your clients are going to think, because they will see it from firm to firm that they go to now, because it's becoming a very common practice to do so. I have seen a lot of firms will say, hey, listen, this is the first year we're doing it. We would appreciate you signing it, right? This is a system that we're putting in place. If you choose not to, that's okay. Next year, you may have a higher price increase than others, right? In order to stay with us. Or even this year, we may have to increase your price because we now need to do certain preparation internally, right? That we're not able to use our team and we're not able to pay the team. Like, we just don't have access to the talent domestically. So we have to pay more for overtime, right? In order to do that preparation. So again, there are different systems and ways to respond to those types of questions as you get them. But if you bring it up to them, you're more likely to have more questions around it, right? So that's where it's not a bad thing about that. It's just know your client, know your team, what feels most comfortable to you, okay? Now, when it comes to the accounting, the business tax, the audit, similar thing. Drop it in your engagement letter, roll it out in the same fashion as you would normally do. For those smaller firms that maybe haven't even implemented an engagement letter, okay, it's time to start implementing an engagement letter. You can roll out the disclosure by itself, right? There's nothing wrong with that. Again, it's very obvious as to what it is in a lot of cases, especially if you're outsourcing the individual tax returns. So what I would suggest, though, is start to implement an engagement letter, right? And put your terms in there. Make it a bit more formal and say, hey, listen, we're at a different stage in business now, and we need to have an engagement letter signed for our individual clients as well as our business clients and our accounting clients and our audit clients, right? And that's just another step in the business cycle that really most businesses have contracts in place with their clients, right? So we need to act more like a business in that sense, right? Early days, completely understand. A lot of firms don't, but take that progressive step to now doing so and being a more formal business in a lot of cases. And then the final piece that I will mention is when it comes to the 7216, I recommend you still, there is specific language, right? It's really from a legal, from an insurance perspective, right? There is specific language that you should have in there. Can you go to your attorneys to talk to them about it? 100%, right? I think it's some cases more important to go to your insurance agent or insurance carrier just to make sure they don't have any additional language that you should have in there so that, God forbid, something happens, you are covered, okay? But take those steps, right? See what they say. There is language given by the AICPA. There's language in the disclosure of the IRS as well that it tells you very clearly as to what to put in there. And just make sure you put the right language in, okay? But like I said, the language is one thing. How you as a firm perceive it, how you as a firm embrace it is a very different thing, Okay. But try not to let it overpower you to not send that out and make it a bigger deal about it than it really is, because there are a lot of firms that have a very good success rate of signing. And worst case, if a client comes to you and says, I'm not signing it for XYZ reason, whatever the case, that is now a business decision as to what you want to do with that client, right? You may say, no worries, right? We don't need you to sign it. We're not going to outsource any work. We'll separate your information. Don't worry about it. But you may say, okay, that may go into when you're rating your clients year on year. Okay, they're not willing to go with the way that we do business. Okay, they may not be the best client for you, right? In some cases, right? So these are the types of things that we need to discuss as a firm. Okay. And I really hope that this episode has cleared up a few aspects there for people. And if you have any additional questions, reach out to me on my email, visit me on LinkedIn, send me a message. More than happy to help you and your firm feel comfortable with the 7216 disclosure requirement, because it is one of those areas that really stunts firms implementing, right? So we want everybody to feel comfortable. And again, let's talk about it. Feel free to shoot any questions across. I'm more than happy to help. I hope you've enjoyed this first episode on Business Beyond Borders, and I look forward to future ones discussing other questions that I'm receiving. Have a good one. Bye.
Thank you for tuning in to Business Beyond Borders. I'm Laurence Whittam, and it's been a pleasure bringing you impactful insights tailored for the modern CPA firm. Remember, the world of accounting is vast and ever evolving, and we're here to navigate it together. For more resources and episodes, don't forget to subscribe and reach out to our experts. Until next time, keep pushing the boundaries of your business and explore the limitless possibilities beyond borders.